What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. My name is Ansel Lindner. Bitcoin is breaking out, so I thought I'd live stream and we go over the charts, then we go over some of the news. If you are finding my YouTube channel for the first time, I've been live streaming less lately, but going to get back into it. Check out the Telegram community. The links should be all down below in the description. Telegram community and Twitter and all of that. So let's go share the screen and jump into the Bitcoin price. So as you can see, let me share that with Telegram as well. So as you can see, we have the 50-day moving average up here on the screen, as well as a supply zone that we've been trying to break out of that was going up to 110,000. Funny enough, I was writing the premium post for the guys on the website at bitcoinandmarkets.com, and I was looking at this, and we were pinching up here with the 50-day moving average, just top of the supply zone. It did look like we could break out. Also looked at some of the heat map liquidation areas, and we are liquidating a lot of shorts right now. So we will see where this ends, but that looks very, very good. Actually, let me go over to that post and I'll go down into some of these. Actually, I'll just bring it up. And let's go into this. Share my screen. So this is from coinglass.com. You can find just by Googling Bitcoin heat map. And you can see right now we're slicing right through that level. The yellow is all of the liquidations at those levels and sliced right through going up. If we go back down, or if we go down to the 3-month period, it gets even more interesting. So you can see how hot that was. And if we zoom in, I think this will keep the same levels. But if you can see, that green candle goes right through that liquidation level, that huge liquidation level that was at right even at 111. If we go to the yearly chart, it'll show all the liquidations levels for the last year. And you can see the bright yellow that had built up over here on the right-hand side. And so this is a very significant level for the last year, the most significant level, and we are breaking through it right now. What does that do? Well, when you liquidate shorts, those shorts have to go around and buy Bitcoin to close those shorts. They're forced to close, and so that is a boost for the price. Back to the live chart, 111.8. This is almost an all-time high, isn't it? So let me see. Very, very close. All-time high is 112 even. Getting very close to that. TikTok, 1193. Let me take a look at the chat, see what you guys are saying. Michael Tenney, what's going on? And Telegram, let me check that out. Ooh, a lot of numbers here, or a lot of comments here. Price is short squeezing just in time for the live stream. Yeah, I know. Just in time for me to finish my premium post as well. So all of my charts are going to be old by the time it goes out, but my commentary won't be that old. Let's see. There's a cup. There's a handle. Yes. If we go back to this, the guys on YouTube won't see this, but Telegram, you'll see this. I analyze this cup and handle. It's was all over Twitter today, maybe the last couple days. I'm not a big cup and handle guy, but this was looking almost textbook. What we're waiting for the cup and handle was the volume. And if I bring this up, you see the volume just has not come in. It's supposed to come in as you break out. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, that's what I was waiting for. All-time high. We didn't hit an all-time high. Oh yeah, we did. At least on Bitstamp, we did 112.40. Let's see what Coinbase is. So this all-time high back here was 12 even again, and we hit 12,152 on Coinbase. So yes, we are hitting a new all-time high, breaking out to an new all-time high. I was on the wrong tab. All-time high on Bitfinex. Yes, Bitstamp by $40. Correct. Okay, going back to, I have to relearn how to watch all the different tabs that I'm sharing and everything. I'm also going out on Twitter. We'll see. A lot of times, I'm not sure how they count views on Twitter because I think if you just click on it once and you leave after 1 minute, it counts as a view, which I guess it kind of should. But, that if you get, say, 1,000 views or 5,000 views on Twitter, that doesn't mean 5,000 people actually watched it. It means maybe they accidentally clicked on it as they were scrolling. So it's not as accurate, but it does seem to have the most views usually. Okay, let's go into Twitter, and you guys can bring up my profile, Ansel Lindner. The show also has a Twitter, BTC MRKTS for Bitcoin markets, but I don't use it all that much. Okay, so let's go through some of these likes that I did today as we're watching the all-time high. This was an interesting chart here. So this guy, Timothy Peterson, who's ready for 3 more months of sideways Bitcoin price action. And what he did was he took price behavior by month, okay, starting at January 1st and tracking the price by month. I'm not sure what this blue line is. Maybe that's the average. Maybe that's last year. That looks kind of like last year, but he's saying that it's usually the summer doldrums. That is true. Bitcoin is usually kind of slow in the summertime, and then it picks up October, November, and into December. But this is kind of a different ball game now. We have a different type of cycle. So one thing I've been talking about a lot, if you guys are just finding my content for the first time, we'll go to the weekly and we'll talk about the uniqueness of this cycle. So we have followed this straight line from the FTX bottom up to the top. It's been pretty much this straight support line in a stair step. You can see stair step 1, 2, 3. Where do we go from here? Talk about that on my premium stuff. But that is very unusual. And what I've done as well is I need to go back to this one. This is Bitstamp. This is my main chart, guys. So if I go in here and I bring up the pattern. So what I did on this pattern is, oh no. Okay, we'll get rid of that for the time being. But I just copied this pattern here and extended it to repeat again. The stair steps just continue. So we're in a new stair step model is what I called it. I think I started talking about this back in January or February this year. And so far, it's looking like it's syncing up pretty well. The top of the next stair step is 150, which makes perfect sense. Then up to 300, which again makes pretty good sense. And there's no bear market, as you can notice. So this is very much different than previous cycles. So you can see this one here was a curve, very nice curve, parabolic move here in 2017. There was something similar here in 2020. Not as clean, not as nice, but it still was like that. And now we're into some different sort of thing. Now, what explains this? Well, institutional buying explains this. They will use sophisticated trading, sophisticated sourcing of Bitcoin to pin the price as much as they can. They want to buy Bitcoin without any slippage, remember. They don't want to, say, raise $1 billion and go in and just buy $1 billion on the open market, because the price will slip very high, and the last Bitcoin they buy will be way more expensive than the first Bitcoin they buy. So they don't want that slippage. They want to buy in sophisticated ways, accumulate in sophisticated ways, over the counter as well. So they buy on the back desks of these places that never hit the tape, never go in and hit the order book. They are OTC. So they're accumulating in sophisticated ways and pinning the price with their options and that kind of stuff. But every so often, there's going to be a marginal source of demand that is not accounted for in their trading strategies, and price will slip up to the next stair step higher. I hope that makes sense. So, for example, I think a lot of these big boys like MSTR and IBIT, that demand, they have a team that is there to decrease the volatility for themselves, okay, so that they can accumulate in a way, not BlackRock themselves, but their market makers that they're dealing with. They are going to have trading strategies to minimize the volatility for themselves. However, what they can't account for are all of these smaller people. That's why people would often say retail will come in and buy up, because all of your models are going to be broken when there's a flood of demand from the margin, right? And right now the margin is Bitcoin holders constantly putting that small DCA bid in every single month. But it's also now hundreds of these small treasury companies. Some of them are buying 10 Bitcoin. Some of them are buying 1,000 Bitcoin. And that doesn't fit into the market makers' models. And eventually the pressure gets to them, and price will expand to the next level, where then they can have enough till that demand is satiated for a few months, and they can pin the price again. That's kind of the idea. Then, of course, recently I've been talking about this supply zone. So there was a supply zone here at the $1,000 level, then the next magnitude higher at the $10,000 level. I had to go in and see if I can find that now. It's some rectangle in here that I have, but I can draw it just right around here. This is the $10,000 supply level. That was a lot of distribution happening there. A lot of people might have bought Bitcoin in this bull market, and then they decide, oh, okay, I'm going to sell at 10,000. It's a little too risky. And then now we have this $100,000 supply zone. So that's what this area is that we are breaking right now. And where is the next supply zone? Well, notice that 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 is the order of magnitude. So the next biggest supply zone will be 1 million, but we will have some different supply zones within that next move. So does that stop at 250 for 6 months? Does it stop at 500 for 6 months? It depends on the individual sellers. Me being kind of a longer term Bitcoiner, if I think mentally, where have I been saying, okay, this is a milestone? Because that would probably be a supply level for earlier Bitcoiners that have accumulated a lot of Bitcoin. And I'm thinking it's around 250, then 500. Those are the two levels before 1 million that I think could slow down the price. 150, I would say, is more short-term Bitcoiners. So if you got in this cycle, if you got in, let's say, post-COVID, 150 might be what that generation of holders, they're thinking 150. But the huge majority of early Bitcoin, I'm talking if you bought, back before the scaling conflict, and you've held the whole time, because most people haven't held, honestly. If you have, I think after 100,000, you're starting to look at 250, 500 as a supply zone. So that's where I think we really could go on this cycle. All right, let me check comments, see if there's any. Dex Invictus, what's up? Yes, Dominic, we have hit all-time high. Let's zoom in here a little bit more on the daily. Now we're back down below 112, but we did crack that all-time high by a little bit. On Bitstamp, it's only by $40. On Coinbase, it was $150. So we have cracked a new all-time high, and we're watching it go higher. Okay, let's go back to my likes and stuff. I'll go through some of these. Okay, Tom Lee. He's a little bit dead to me now, but he has some good stuff still about Bitcoin. He has this, obviously he's a salesman for his Ethereum product now. So that is, he's a shit coiner. But this idea is very interesting. He's talking about sovereign put. And so we will look into this. I don't know if anybody else in Bitcoin has talked about a sovereign put, or if Tom Lee is the first one to use that term. But it's an interesting concept. So let's take a listen.
For us at Fundstrat, we've been advocates of Bitcoin.
And before I do that, let me make sure that I'm sharing I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Share again. Also share tab audio. I think that is correct. Give me a thumbs up in YouTube if you guys can hear this, and let's go.
For us at Fundstrat, we've been advocates of Bitcoin for over 8 years now. But when MicroStrategy announced its treasury strategy, it was really eye-opening to see it trade at a premium to their Bitcoin holdings. And that was like something that was very hard for our clients to reconcile. We ended up, of course, being pretty bullish on it. It told me two things. One, now that MicroStrategy has 600,000 Bitcoin, it is so big that I think it has a sovereign put. Like it is, if the United States or Qatar or UAE want to get 1 million Bitcoin, they're not going to go in the open market. They're going to end up buying treasury holders like MicroStrategy, and it's easier for them to pay a 2 times premium for that rather than run Bitcoin up to $1 million.
That's a very, very important concept. These large buyers, they can go and buy MicroStrategy. They have rights to the underlying Bitcoin, but they don't have to pump the Bitcoin price. Okay. Now, eventually, maybe there will be slow accumulation over time of spot Bitcoin, where that premium to MSTR to spot Bitcoin will shrink. But for right now, I think that is a very interesting concept, that the largest buyers can buy MSTR, and that they're paying a premium. I'm not sure what the MSTR premium is right now, if it's 50% or something like that, but they're not slipping the price. Look at all these. There are sovereign wealth funds that are owning MSTR. There's the pension, the national pension funds that are owning MSTR, and they're buying a lot, like $1 billion. And they can go out into the stock market, buy the MSTR without slipping the underlying price. So I think it's a very important concept to understand. There's also recycling, and I think he might talk about that here a little bit. But people that are selling their self-custody Bitcoin and buying MSTR, they are taking a haircut because of the premium, but they're getting a slight bit of leverage also on their Bitcoin. So you're trading the haircut for the leverage, and that has a price suppression characteristic. Okay, so if people are selling at spot and they're buying MSTR, there is a price suppression force that comes along with that, but it's really just recycling demand, and they're trading the self-custody for slight amount of leverage that you get with MSTR being an actively managed treasury company that is accumulating Bitcoin. So interesting concepts right here. And as we chew through that, as we chew through the supply zone that I was showing on the chart at 100,000, we're chewing through that, and we as we come out the other side, that demand for Bitcoin from MSTR, from IBIT, from Metaplanet, from all of these players, it's going to show itself, and price is going to move very rapidly to the next level. Okay, let's continue with this.
Then I just realized that treasury strategies are really important to crypto for a lot of reasons.
Bitcoin.
One is that in a staking world like Ethereum, crypto treasuries are actually probably a precursor to what JP Morgan and the Goldmans will do, because eventually they're going to own crypto on their balance sheet, and as they issue stable coins, they're going to actually want to stake Ethereum and Solana. And it's
No, they're
creating an
not.
asset class. I think it's not too dissimilar to how oil companies historically.
Just disregard all that he said there about Ethereum and staking. IBIT can't stake their, or not IBIT, but BlackRock can't stake their Ethereum yet, as far as I know, for their ETFs. The risk profile for Ethereum treasuries is much different than a risk profile for a Bitcoin treasury, and they have not, the demand for Ethereum, let alone Solana, is way lower for that of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is much more fixed supply, and so it's not even a comparison. Ethereum is a centralized company, basically. You're buying and holding the unregistered securities, even though they're not going to be, at this point, they're not going to be prosecuted for that. That it's not going to be enforced, but they are unregistered securities. So you're putting unregistered securities on your balance sheet. Even not officially, it's a completely different ask of that company to do that than for them to buy MSTR or them to buy Bitcoin for their treasuries. So completely different. And I know he's pumping his bags here because he's doing some Ethereum product. That's what I don't like about him. He's kind of dead to me, but these concepts are very interesting. And, the sign of, there's a lot of purity in Bitcoin, a lot of purity, where you won't even deal with someone's ideas if they said they liked the Federal Reserve. Okay. But the sign, I think, of an intelligent person, or the sign of maybe an intellectually honest and open person, is that you can separate different arguments in your mind, and you can take good arguments and incorporate them into your thinking versus bad arguments. So everybody is not this monolithic player that they have, especially when you're trying to learn. You can take good ideas and separate them from the bad ideas. And I think that's very important. And you won't get that from a lot of Bitcoin content producers. Either they're ideologically set one way and everything for anarchy, like they hate everything else, even talking about other concepts or giving other concepts the time of day. So I don't do that here. Anyway, let's continue.
Historically trade on a premium to their proven reserves because investors expect them to accumulate additional reserves. ExxonMobil was the largest stock in the S&P 500 for 25 years, from 1990 to 2015. Top five, never dropped below top five. It was never valued on earnings. It was always a price premium to its proven reserves. And MicroStrategy probably will become the biggest stock in the US as a listed company, and it doesn't make earnings. It's valued purely on its price to Bitcoin reserve.
Wow. Yep. Slight premium on price to reserves. That makes sense because there's that slight bit of leverage, and there's always growth in the economy. And so, yeah, if ExxonMobil is priced to its proven reserves, MicroStrategy will be priced the same way. So that's very, very interesting. Okay. Let's continue
For
down.
us at Fundstrat,
That's enough, Tom Lee. Let's see. Here we go. Mark Harvey, don't know him. The Powerful HRV. If Ethereum is decentralized, why does it have a foundation? Of course. Ethereum is not decentralized. Half of the content. Okay, this is from Naveed. He's a good follow. Switch Labs. Don't agree with him. Just like I was talking about, he has a lot of differing opinions than I do, but he says half of the content on this platform is communist, anarchist, Nazi slop. Training a truth-seeking AI on this is never going to end well. What does that remind you of, guys? I'll give you a minute. That's my opinion of AI in general. Okay. So you're training AI on garbage garbage in, garbage out. And if it's already just a human problem, so it's human created bots, you've seen those shops over there in China or some other country, and they have 200 phones and they're all just spamming with bots on Twitter or whatever, even TikTok or I don't know what social media. And those are human run. Those aren't like AI run. What if they have an AI that is running thousands and thousands of bots and doing it in a very sophisticated way to alter the information, to alter your perception and the perception of the other AI, like Grok, that is trying to take what's going on on Twitter and use that for its training material, for its thought process. Like, it's garbage in, garbage out. And the better these AIs get, the better the noise will get. So there's a point where the cost to get any marginal benefit out of AI is exponential. A lot of people think, oh, 2 years. We're 2 years from the singularity. You hear things like that all the time. You can't imagine where we'll be in 2 years. 2 years from singularity. I think we're like 2 years from peak, peak AI, if we're not already there. And I kind of saying that I feel like a Luddite and feel like a peak oil moron. But overall, I mean, there's different arguments for peak oil than peak AI. I think Web3 was a scam. NFTs were a scam. ICOs were a scam. And we've been in this space and we can kind of sniff out these things. A lot of these kind of scams follow the same thing. And I think AI is in that same school of scams. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, this guy, Bit Digital, they switched from Bitcoin mining to 100% Ethereum treasury strategy. Oh, watch out. That's not going to end very well. Okay, I thought this was very great. This was very good. So Jamie Bambrick, let me check comments before I continue. See if there's any. If you guys are watching, put them down below. Okay, so Jamie Bambrick, he says, we were in Colorado last week and I was struck by what is now an enormous disparity in wealth between the US and the UK. Spent a couple of nights in a cabin in an RV park. It had pools, slides, mini golf, etc. Fun for the kids. But the place was packed with RVs worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only that, but it's clearly a conservative form of vacation. So the average car on the site was a pickup. These were almost universally less than a couple years old and worth at least 60 to 80K, if not more. I could drive you to the poshest place in Northern Ireland, and though you'd see the occasional high-end vehicle, the average car there would probably cost half as much as these. And then I was talking to someone and they said, yeah, this is the most typical middle-class American summer getaway. Middle class. Our economies used to be roughly on par when it comes to GDP per capita. Now the American middle class lives at a level that puts the UK upper classes to shame. I wouldn't say that much, but sad times for us. Kudos to America for resisting the socialism that has ground our economies to a halt. I thought this was good. Brilliant Rorschach test for Americans, because there's a lot of people down here saying, oh, whatever, you're an idiot. There's this is upper class. This is not how it is. The replies, you can see the perennial doomers or the optimists. And I totally end up on the optimist scale here. I'm very much optimist for the United States. I'm worried for Europe, including the UK, because they are not able to throw off the communist yoke that the US has apparently, right now it seems, the US has been able to throw off and successfully fight back against the commies. That is not, the battle's never over. It is a battle as old as time. But, right now it seems like the US, we have our best years still ahead of us. The next 100 years will be, the 21st century will definitely be the American century at this point. But anyway, the reason why I say it's the oldest time is because Marxism is really just Gnosticism. It is believing the serpent in the Garden of Eden, that God is the bad one and man can be like God if they just eat from the tree of good and evil. If you awaken your consciousness to the real truth, the mysteries of good and evil, and view the world with the proper consciousness. And that is what Marx brought into a class struggle, and what the cultural Marxists have brought into all sorts of oppressor-oppressed type of setups. So the initial oppressor-oppressed was God and man in the Garden of Eden. So it's a story as old as time. We're not going to get rid of it. There can be periods of great prosperity and success, but that will be intermixed with great periods of war and famine. And so that's not a doomer way to look at it. Okay, this is the human experience. And it's a little bit naive to say that we can continue on with the great progress that we've had, quote unquote progress, scientific materialist progress that we've had over the last 100 years. And we can continue that into the foreseeable future and have, Star Trek type of galactic communism in a way. That's almost certainly not possible. I mean, I guess there's a chance that anything is possible, but the most likely scenario is that we are going to revert to a mean. And that brings in the idea of the credit bubble, the boom bust cycle. We're in a 75-year credit bubble. And a lot of the advances that we've seen in the world over the last 75 years are going to fall away. It might fall away socially. It might fall away technologically as well. Like, technology can be lost relatively quickly. A lot of people don't understand that. But a lot of knowledge is what's the term for it? Institutional knowledge, where it's actually stored in the minds of men, and you pass it on to the next generation. And if we're having this demographic crisis, what I've written in the past is, you can imagine some small niche skill that only 5 people in the world still possess, how to do something. And those people retire or die. Now nobody knows how to do it. And even though it's a very niche thing, that's happening to hundreds or thousands of processes in society, in culture, every year. And over time, we forget how to do stuff. One of the examples might be, I'm not a programmer, but isn't there like the mainframe programming language from the 80s? And some of the banks, their stuff still uses it. And there's very few of these old coding language programmers left. And that can just fall away. It might not fall away immediately, but it'll slowly grind away. And if we don't use certain skills, they eventually fall away. Comments here. Jeff says AI won't be helpful for truth seeking, but will be for image generation and surveillance data parsing stuff. Okay, yes, but how much image generation do we need? We already have a problem in society with scrolling. And one of the kind of series or what would you call it? The types of AI generated content that I thought was hilarious the first time I saw it. And I went down a rabbit hole for like 2 hours watching these shorts, is the Bigfoot stuff. When he's like, I'm getting drunk and jumping out of this airplane, dying doing the thing I love, not skydiving, drinking. Anyways, it's just funny. Okay. But I just wasted 2 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back. So like, how much image generation do we actually need? Think about a movie, okay? And a movie, let's say it's completely made by AI, but that's just one movie. We don't have demand for a billion movies made by AI. There's just not enough demand for that. Plus, part of a movie experience is sharing it with other people. So there's not like this infinite demand for unique content. Okay. So how much image generation do we need? How much surveillance do we want? Data parsing. Yeah, but data parsing has to do with noise to signal, right? You're finding the signal in the noise. And what if you just get spammed with a bunch of noise? Data parsing, the return on the investment of data parsing is going to be exponential, or the cost is going to be exponential and return is going to be diminishing. So yeah, some of those things. I think like AI for spell checking and helping you write stuff, that is going to, I think, be very good. But also, I mean, I've been using it for over a year and it's still like subpar. I mean, I read the stuff that ChatGPT edits for me and it's not very good. I have to go back and edit it again myself. You can both tell that it's been with the AI and it's just lacks any sort of personality or any sort of real skill in writing. It's just just an algorithm. And so I don't know. I'm not sold on it. I'm definitely not sold on that. But anyway, back to this guy. He was saying there's this huge discrepancy or disparity between the US and the UK. And yeah, it's probably going to widen. These people, if you're a top 1%er, I would recommend trying to emigrate, especially if you're in a place like Italy, Spain, Germany. France might be okay. UK, probably not. Probably won't do as well as France. You got to get to the US, I would say. If you're top 1%er in your country, you got to move, especially if you're in South Korea, Japan, China. These places with their horrible demographics, it's about to really get killed. Okay, talking about demographics, let's go to another thing here. A reply that I had just recently. Then we'll take a look at the chart because I haven't looked in a couple minutes. Okay, so this is from Live Monitor. He is on a different podcast. What's it called? I can't remember now. But he has some good takes. And he was totally wrong about the election. I mean, he has some really, really bad takes too, but don't we all? So he was saying here, there are perhaps 2 to 4 years left of robust boomer consumption. After that, the demographic cliff is real. America will soon face a slow motion withdrawal of its primary demand base. In the middle of a fiscal hurricane it created itself. Yes, of course. This is the demographic cliff that I have been pounding my fist, pounding the table for years now. The demographic cliff precludes the recovery of this coming recession. If you're in Germany, Japan, China, this recession you will not recover from without a drastic change, without hitting rock bottom, basically. And that's because of demographics. You just do not have the working age population to pull yourself out of recession. The cost to take care of the older people is a drag. It's an anchor. So without some revolutionary change, even if fertility rates go up today, it doesn't matter. It takes 20 years to build a productive member of society. And so it's at best 20 years away. And it's not changing anytime soon. It continues to get worse year after year after year. So we're probably minimum 40 years away from any sort of reversal of this trend. And right now, there's not enough working age population to pull these people out, to pull these countries out. The US might have one more cycle, might be able to pull itself out. I think it will. But relatively to the rest of the world, the US is going to be doing the best. My response here was, sad truth is the US isn't even that old. It has the lowest median age in the G7. So if you think of the G7 countries, the US is doing the best demographically. And we only have 2 to 4 years left, according to Live Monitor here. I think his name is Albert. So what does that mean for the rest of the world? Plus, the rest of the world doesn't have a large millennial population. The US actually has a significant millennial generation where other countries don't. So all of these things demographically add up to the US being doing relatively better. Okay, let's jump over back to the price chart. Share this tab. Nothing continuing yet. 110,970. Let's check and see if there's any other comments. Stand by. My kids are getting home. They're going to be loud here for a second. All right. Well, I can't wait all day for them to come in the front door. My office is right by the front door, so. All right, let's take a look at some of these other macro things. How about gold? Gold is consolidating pretty much as expected. We had two options here: either go fast and go consolidate in price and recover quickly, or drag it out a little bit longer in time. And it looks like gold is continuing to drag out in time. The rest of this year could be standby. Sorry. All right, sorry about that, guys. If you're watching over there on YouTube or Twitter, first time seeing my content, I have a bunch of kids. My kids just came home from a movie. It's summer break for school. They were at a movie, and the neighbor had their dogs in the front yard talking, and it was just mayhem. So, okay, back to the chart. Here's gold consolidation. I said when we were coming up here, the main story for this year was going to be consolidation for gold. And it kind of looks like that is the case. When gold consolidates, typically it's time for Bitcoin to take over. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. So let's hope that Bitcoin does do that. The dollar, DXY, off the lows. We'll see. Again, everyone's talking about how far the dollar has dropped. But if we measure from last September to today, it's only 2.5%. So the dollar is only down 2.5% in the last, say, 10 months. Yes, if you measure from the top and you cherry pick from the very top to the very bottom, it's about 10%. But we're still within this range, and it's not like the end of the world here for the dollar. I did expect it to be stronger, but we will see how that develops. Okay, U.S. 10-year down significantly today. And some of these, pretty much the general trend is conserved. If we draw a parallel channel here, it kind of looked like it might break out. maybe it'll hold above this channel, but honestly, I do think we might see something like this. That's just part of the channel coming down. Of course, rates fall going into a recession, and I believe that is where we are headed globally. The US is just the laggard here going into recession. Oil did hold our long-term support, turn resistance, now perhaps turning support, temporary support for the time being, but still at $68, relatively weak. Let's take a look at gasoline futures. And gasoline futures aren't really doing much of anything. Overall, the general trend is still down. So a lot of times, people, one of my jobs, I consider my job, is to fight back against the sky is falling people, where inflation is going to go through the roof, the dollar is going to die, oil is going to go to $300, all this stuff. And I try to fight back against that hyperbole and doomerism and say that, no, we're in a secular bear market for all of these commodities. Basically, if you look at a commodity index, let's see which one would be better. I can't remember which one is better, Bloomberg, or I think the Goldman one has longer history. So let's take a look at that. Same thing if you take a look at all commodities. So this is a commodity index. I'll go to the weekly chart. And you can see, let me make sure I have this on regular. As you can see, even during COVID, the commodities did not hit the all-time high from 2008. And we are forming a similar pattern to this. So we will see what happens. You see very similar on this pattern where the arrows are. And this is the 50-week moving average. And overall, I think going into recession, we're going to see a dip like we did back here in 2014 if we go back into recession. So that's oil and gas and commodities. Back to Bitcoin. Last one we have is the S&P 500. Let's see, go back to the daily chart and see where we ended up for the day. It's up on the day, but still not an all-time high for the S&P 500. Okay, back to Bitcoin, 110.9, about $1,000 now off of that all-time high. I don't think it's going to stop here. Maybe for today it's over, but we'll see. I think we're going to see a $10,000 candle very, very soon. Okay, let me go to the comments. Doggo, Dex Invictus. Yeah, Doggo. So my house, man, it's a zoo. 4 kids off for summer. My wife works mostly from home as well, and I do my writing and do streaming and stuff. And so we're home a lot, and now we are dog sitting in the summer as well. I mean, it is just a wild house. Howdy, partners. What's up? Okay, let's take a look at Telegram comments if there's any. Copper pumped, says Spock. Let's go and take a look at copper. Copper did pump, and the reason for that, remember, is the tariffs that were put on. Trump put on like 30% tariffs on copper, and so it did pump significantly yesterday, about 13% in one day. I wonder if that's probably the largest single pump day in many, many years. I don't know. We might have to go back to COVID to see something like that, a 13% day in copper, but that was due to the tariff announcement yesterday. And that is not a necessarily a fundamental. Remember one thing, I mean, Spock, I know you know this, but for those that are watching that don't usually consume my content, prices go up and down for many reasons. One is inflation or money printing, increasing the supply of money. But prices going up is not inflation in and of itself. So during COVID, prices went up because supply was cut back. That was the main driving force. Now, we could have supply and demand would have balanced itself out better. Prices would not have accelerated as much as they did if there was not stimulus or subsidy for demand. We subsidize demand by borrowing money from the future and giving it out people in stimmy checks. So we subsidized demand while supply was pulled back, and then prices, of course, went up dramatically. But it took a monumental effort. Imagine the effort that it took to push prices, the CPI year over year rate to 9%. A monumental effort, the biggest spending ever, and dropping rates to zero rapidly. Lots of QE, all of that stuff, all those efforts. Huge monumental effort to get to 9%. What would it take to get to 20% inflation or CPI? What would it take to get CPI to 20%? Like double the COVID response? Do you see double the COVID response being possible? No, I don't. At least not right now. Maybe in 5-10 years from now, it'll be possible. But right now it's not. So prices go up and down for many reasons. And this copper is a great example. This 13% move in copper was not due to money printing. It was due to tariffs, the announcement of tariffs. So there you go. There it is. Let's see any other comments. Political science denier says, you are one of my notifications on Twitter because I appreciate your rational dissent from other prominent Bitcoiners who preach collapse and hyperinflation to sell a book. Oh, well, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to be a unique thinker and have my own insights. I just think when I think of how I want to learn about the world and understand the world, I just kind of share that, what I am doing with you guys. And I think it's helpful. I'm not saying I'm right all the time, but I'm saying it's very useful to question your assumptions. I mean, I want to live the best life that I can. And I think everybody does. And not that I have like some sort of monopoly on knowing how to do that, but I don't think anybody else does either. And we're all trying to do our best. And if I can provide an option, at least you can learn from my mistakes if I do make mistakes. So that's kind of why I do what I do. I did have another one along those lines. Let's go into my Twitter here. And it was from Joe Carloseri, who I do appreciate his content. I don't really watch his spaces or anything, but he said, if you're a parent, it is better to keep telling your kids, is it better to keep telling your kids how much harder it is to get ahead in today's world, or tell them they can achieve anything if they're willing to be relentless? Even if it's true that the world is tougher, there's no virtue in complaining about how hard it is for young people today. That doesn't mean we shouldn't care about them. We absolutely should. But the message should be clear. The world doesn't care about the obstacles in their way. Complaining won't change it. Grinding will. I love that sentiment. I really do. Grinding will. One of the things I always said with my kids is, I don't know why this made me think of this, but if my kids are fighting and one of them starts crying, the person that cries first loses the argument. I will back the other person. And so that's kind of like, keep your emotions under control, move ahead, do what you're supposed to do. However, I think Joe has a slightly wrong framing of this. So the world is tougher. What does he mean? The world is tougher to succeed in. The world is tougher to get to a certain level of material wealth, material well-being. See, it's tougher now, but how is it tougher? It's tougher if you're aiming at a certain thing, right? I don't think the world is tougher to live virtuously. And that was my response here. I said, this implies a materialist standard of outcome. It has always been equally difficult to live a virtuous life. Some generations, yes, some generations are blessed, and they were born in a good time and a good place. You know, US 1960. That was a blessed time to be alive, to be born. Some people think, oh, I was born in the wrong era. I should have been born in ancient Rome, or I should have been born in some other era because I'm fascinated with that era, or they had it really good, or it was more civilized at that time, and yada yada. Anyway, people think they're born in the wrong time and place, or but people usually don't say, if you were born in that time and place, that you think other people are just not working hard. But different times are going to be different in every way, shape, and form. And some generations just happened to be born in a very blessed time of relative peace and prosperity. United States, 1960, probably the best time to ever be born in the history of the planet. Ever. Especially if you're talking about material wealth. But, the United States still had relative good virtues at that time. But it slowly went away because it's been replaced by material well-being, material standard. Others are born during war and famine. I mean, even being born today in the United States, it's still amongst the best ever to ever live. Time and place. But we're all trying to live the good life. So how do you measure the good life? Do you measure it by materialist outcome, which is kind of what Joe is saying? He's saying, suck it up and overcome to get that bag, right? To get that bag. No, I don't think that's the right framing. I think that you should strive for virtue, and it's always hard, no matter when you live, to be virtuous, whether you're born in peace and prosperity or war and famine. Being born in war and famine might be, I was going to say, more understandable if you're not living a virtuous life, but still, the aim is virtue, and it's not material. Perhaps it is the failure to live by and pass on the proper aims of virtue, faith, and family that bring about the material struggles of the next generation. So the boomers didn't do a very good job. They had the wrong aims in life. That's why that's why debt is out of control, right? That's why we have a credit-based system and all of this. But is it their fault too? I mean, I don't believe that. I think humans react to their environment, and their environment was, look at all this cheap credit you can get. And so they naturally are going to do that and get a higher material wealth. But that perverts the aims away from virtue, family, and faith. And anyway, so the material struggles are kind of blamed on the previous generation. But like I said, everybody's born in a different time and place. And I think it's equally as difficult for everybody to be virtuous. So I wonder what you guys think about that. That might be a hot take, might be a dumb take. I don't know. But let's see what you guys are saying here. Smiling Spock. Trump slapping a 50% tariff on Brazil, due in part to Brazil's insidious attacks on free elections. Oh, that's good. What do you think about that? You think that's a good take? Oh, he backs Bolsonaro again. Oh, I better not say that name. That's what got my last YouTube channel nuked. I said something about that politician, and my channel was deleted while I was live streaming. Yeah. Boog says you think it's a great take about the time to be alive. It's a wild time, and my view is it's kind of doomer, but it's kind of not. Oh, the Epstein stuff. All right. Well, let me go to a place on the screen, a holder. We'll just hold it right there. So, what do I think about the Epstein stuff? I think that it's a lie. They have thousands of videos. They have hundreds of names. It's being covered up. Why is it being covered up? I don't know. It's been really weak on the DOJ. The DOJ has been extremely weak so far in the Trump presidency. I would say if you look at all the different agencies, the DOJ has been the weakest with results. They have been fighting a lot with the Supreme Court. They've been doing things. I think they're taking on some current trafficking networks, both cartel wise and the sex trafficking wise and that kind of stuff. I think they're taking care of current things, and maybe the old stuff is on the back burner. I think they're also fighting internal conflicts with people hiding stuff, destroying evidence. So I think they're fighting that battle as well. But it's a lie. They have a lot of stuff. They just can't give it up. And I don't know. Look, I'm just a dude sitting here. I'm just a normal dad in a middle-class neighborhood. I think I know stuff about economics and Bitcoin. And who am I to question the FBI and the DOJ and all this stuff? There's probably a lot that is not known by the public. And there's going to be a lot of people out there that think they know better, that think they know all the details to make a moral judgment on this. I don't know all the details to make a moral judgment. What I can say is I think Trump has the best interests of the American people at heart. I don't think he's a corrupt politician like others. He's not really a politician. He's a populist leader. He's a man of the people by definition. And so I don't know the details. That's what I would say. There's going to be a lot of people that try to say that they know exactly how to morally weigh this situation out. And yeah, okay, you know a lot of facts about the situation, but you don't know all the facts. You probably don't even know half of the facts. And that's why we have leaders, okay? That's why we have leaders. We have hierarchies. You got to trust somebody sometime. And you got to do your best in your life according to your values. Live your life the best you can. And it's the what's the Hayekian thing, the information problem, right? The information problem. There's nobody can know the market. The market is bigger than all of us. That's why the price is the God's honest truth of the matter. Okay. And so that's how I think of it politically too, at least in this time and this specific time, is there's so much out there that we don't have all the information. Not any one person can have the information, but you have to trust a leader to do what they do in that respect. I think if I listened to this and I went back 15 years when I was hardcore libertarian, crypto anarchist, finding Bitcoin, and I would listen to myself now, I'd be, oh my God, dude, you totally cucked yourself to the government. I don't think so, though. I think that I don't know how to explain that. I don't know, guys. I'm having an existential crisis online here. I'm crashing out right now. But I think as you get older and you see certain things and you realize the limitations of man, and you also see evil, like, oh man, I don't know. when you come face to face with evil and demons, I think it changes a person. And I'm not saying that I've been faced like seriously traumatic things, but I've seen evil, I think. And once you do that, you realize that there's people that are out to get you. There's people out to take you down. And once you understand communism and you really understand Marxism and how they will kill you, and they don't care because you stand in the way of perfecting man. You know, your death is actually good for the world. So their moral concepts is totally switched upside down. And that's what we're fighting. And I think I know right and wrong, good and evil. And I can't fight the communists by myself. I can't fight the communists by myself. Nobody can fight the communists by themselves, okay? You got to have a group, and you got to have a culture that has an immunity towards these ideas and concepts and talking points, and be able to know how to take them down and fight bad speech with more speech, and have a movement, an organization, and a leader, and a hierarchy in society. Daniel says, you're describing that hideous strength and the abolition of man by C.S. Lewis. I have not read C.S. Lewis, but I really want to. I've listened to some of this stuff on like audio, like little clips. But yeah, I would need to read more C.S. Lewis. Anyways, so that's that. Let's go take a look at the Bitcoin price. Enough of this. This is copper. Bitcoin, back to Bitcoin, 110.7. Bitcoin is breaking out. It did make a new all-time high, but kind of hit some resistance and coming back. We will see. Let's go into this liquidation again and refresh. Make sure I'm on the right tab. Okay. We want symbol up here. We want to go. So look at all that. We just sliced through, come back down, got that liquidity. Okay, so let's zoom in on this. Can we zoom in on this? This is just 24 hours though. But you can see we came up, grabbed that liquidity, then instantly this started building. So people went in there and they degened long, guys. So there's all of this liquidity at 110. It got sliced through, and immediately, what is this within? 35 to 55. 20 minutes, people went degen long. It says 138 million. Let's see what it got up to here. Yeah, 138 million. Let's just say 200 million of degen longs that were going to get liquidated at that exact same price, 110. And it came down and grabbed that liquidity back again. Oh my gosh. That is a beautiful story. Let's see. Let's go to the monthly chart on this. No time really here to build any other stuff. Let's go to 3 month. I think this is the breakout, but we will see. And let me zoom in here a little closer. Man, I wish I could make it more clear. Yeah, we grabbed all that liquidity right there. Dang, we just went right through it. So we will see what happens to price here. 110.7. We'll see where we close the day. We still have 2 days left of this week. I think we will see a $10,000 day at some point in the near future, whether that's this week or next week. But looking very good, breaking out of this whole supply zone region. As long as we're above 110, I think there's going to be a lot less supply on the market. And that's hard for some people maybe to get that. But, you know, people will have a psychological target in their head. And I think between 100 and 110, that's more of a psychological target. If they were to sell at this zone, they would have sold by 110. If they aren't going to sell by 110, they're probably going to hold to 150, right? And so that's what I'm talking about. I think that the available supply, the recycling and other things above 110, there's just less of it. And so it could go 10, maybe even a $20,000 candle, maybe two $10,000 days in a row or something like that. It could move very, very quickly. And I was not sharing the right tab. So that's the one I was talking about. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Any other comments? Let me see if I provoked any over here on YouTube. Roderick says, oh, let me take these one by one. Roderick says, you are being too nice. Who are you, a voter, a citizen, and you can question? You have eyes and children. Don't apologize for them. I maybe need to clarify that. Political science denier. I don't know how whistleblowers don't come forward with Epstein stuff. Fact of the matter is, there was enough evidence to get Ghislaine or whatever her name is. Yep, that's true. And I mean, they have her little black book for sure. 100%. We know that. And I was listening to some guy that was going back through the original Epstein indictments. And they're saying that they have employee number one, which they think was the Ghislaine, however you say her name, employee two, employee three. And they don't even have employee two or employee three. They never took them, charged them or anything. And that was in the original indictment of Epstein. And then you have stuff from the indictment in Florida back from like 2008, was it? When he was indicted back in Florida. Also, I guess, under Bondi when she was the attorney general down in Florida. So she knows this case very well. She knows that there's a ton of evidence. So yeah, they're lying. Why are they lying? I don't know. Another thing I said right before Trump got in office, I think I said this when I was pretty convinced that he was going to win. And I was like, if you think that these people are ever going to be brought to justice, you might want to get comfortable with not getting justice in this life. Okay. You have to be willing to, say they will pay, but they might not pay in this life. Like, think about Fauci. He's like 85, isn't he? He's like really old. He could die any day and never be brought to justice, but he will get justice, just not in this life. I think that's a way to become sane about it, to still be able to reason and not just lose your mind with vengeance, right? These people are evil ass people, and you can drive yourself insane with vengeance, like the Israel stuff. People that drive themselves insane about Israel and how evil they are and all this stuff. I don't necessarily think that, but some people do, and they can't get back to sanity. Everything has to be framed in Israel or Jewish people versus the world or corruption, and it just takes over their mind like a virus. And the way that you protect yourself against that is you say, yeah, they did something bad and deserve punishment. But if they don't get, and I will work towards that, I support that, but it is not a matter of existential justice to bring them to justice, because they will feel justice at some point, maybe not in this life, but in the afterlife, right? And so that is a immunity to your thought process, that, and to the culture that's widely held within the culture. It's an immunity towards this type of vengeance and type of madness of crowds. Trump is compromised, Roderick says, or scared. He has kids, and is that a point of leverage? Yes, he has grandkids even, right? He has tons of grandkids, I think. well, I don't know, maybe about as many grandkids as kids. I'm not sure. But yes, he has a family and he's scared for his family, but he's also a billionaire and he has security. Elon Musk has security. These rich folks have security and they have intelligence. I mean, Trump has the intelligence apparatus. He has the Secret Service. And so I think, yes, if there's a mad lone gunman, that's the hardest to protect against. That's why the assassinations of presidents usually happen from a lone gunman, because they are very hard to surveil, right? But large conspiracies against the president, that would be easier to surveil and to catch. So I guess that's what I would say on that. Political science denier. It doesn't hurt to keep applying pressure. You have to maintain the Overton window. Otherwise, it's just easier for them to do it again. Well, definitely, man. Definitely. Yes. And things should be codified as well. We should take this opportunity to change the laws, to downsize government. I mean, Trump is somewhat downsizing things. He got getting rid of some bad funding with USAID, billions and billions of dollars funding. I mean, it looks like we were funding the commies. We were funding the critical or the cultural Marxism that was going on globally, was being funded by the US government. And that has pretty much at least slowed to a trickle. And Department of Education is getting cut back. There's a lot of things getting cut back, and they were paused in the Supreme, or they're paused by the district courts. Like they wanted to, one of his executive orders was to make a plan to how to cut all these people that work for the government. And then that was frozen by the district courts, not the actual cutting of anybody, but just the planning to cut. Like, help me come up with a plan to cut these people. And that was frozen by the district court to even make plans. But that was recently overturned by the Supreme Court. And so now they can plan how to cut these things. So yeah, moving the Overton window, pushing forward, I guess, keeping the heat on Fauci, keeping the heat on these other people, talking about it is fine. But, like I've said about Safedine, and which happens to so many people, they just get consumed by vengeance and righteousness. And you're not perfect. I don't know. As you can tell, it's part of my journey that I'm on right now. So, okay, what else do we have? Let's go into Telegram, jumping back and forth. Okay, no other comments. Well, that's where I'm going to leave it today, guys. Make sure you check out bitcoinandmarkets.com. This is the website. You can sign up for free to get on the email list when I do make a free blog post, which is kind of fewer and far between now. $5 a month can get you into the price forecast competition that goes out every month. And the winner, the closest person at the end of the month to the price, gets $20 in sats. And if you join the pro tier, you get a bunch of, I try to do 2 a week, but if it's been really slow, I won't update my stuff. But a macro and a Bitcoin post every week about charts and what's going on, my takes on the economy. So that is that. Check out bitcoinandmarkets.com. Other than that, thanks for hanging out, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.